Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. For more than 250 years, we believed there was only one species of giraffe. However, a study concluded that there are 4 different species of these very long-necked animals. People who experience anxiety more frequently than normal also tend to have a higher intelligence quotient than average. If you drink a glass of water, it is almost 100% certain that at least one of the molecules in that water has passed through or been part of a dinosaur at some point. Komodo dragons can eat 80% of their body mass in just a few minutes. For us, that would be equivalent to eating 260 Big Macs at lunchtime. Starfish have filtered seawater in their bodies instead of blood. They use a water vascular system that moves water to transport nutrients, oxygen, and waste, and also helps them move in open shells using the hydraulic pressure of their tiny tube feet. Singing in the shower can make you burn an extra 20 calories per song, depending on the volume and tone of your voice. This happens because singing activates the muscles of the diaphragm, chest, and abdomen, and requires greater breath control, which slightly increases the body's energy expenditure. Manatees control their buoyancy using a technique that consists of retaining and releasing gases. They also adjust the amount of air in their lungs, which are very long and extend along their bodies, allowing them to rise or sink in the water with great precision without using much energy. There are 1,311 people living in Verkhoyansk, Russia, a city where the average temperature in January is minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit and is frequently attacked by packs of wolves. But if you look at the bright side, they do not need to buy refrigerators for their homes, and the beer is always cold. I mean, you have to stay optimistic. Monkeys can learn to use money. When capuchin monkeys were taught to exchange silver discs for food, they began saving to buy the food they liked most. They also bought larger amounts when the price dropped and even started gambling, and there were problems involving the theft of money. They are so similar to us. Tea bags were created by accident by the seller Thomas Sullivan in 1908, who distributed tea samples in small bags. His customers, instead of opening them, dropped them directly into the water, and it became the most popular way to prepare this drink. The sun is the most perfect sphere observed in nature. Measurements taken with space instruments have shown that the difference between its equatorial and polar diameter is minimal, only a few miles, despite its enormous size and constant rotation, which makes it almost perfectly round. The longest train journey you can take starts in Portugal and ends in Vietnam. In total, it is 10,563 miles. The route connects Western Europe with Southeast Asia through multiple transfers and can take more than 3 weeks, crossing countries such as France, Germany, Poland, Russia, and China. 50,000 years ago, watermelons were pale green and tasted bitter, but they were selectively bred to have a sweeter flavor. In the process, their flesh turned red. The name orchid is derived from the Greek word for testicle, while avocado comes from the word in the Nahuatl dialect for testicle as well. The first person to jump from the Brooklyn Bridge was a professional diver who wanted to prove that people did not die simply from falling through the air. And indeed, falling 131 feet through the air did not harm him, until he hit the water, and the impact killed him. If you eat a spoonful of sugar after eating something very spicy, it will neutralize the heat. This happens because sugar helps reduce the sensation caused by capsaicin, the compound responsible for the burning feeling. Although it does not eliminate it completely, it can lessen the intensity and relieve the discomfort faster than water. The color of a flame changes according to its temperature. The core is light blue because it is the hottest part of the flame, at 2,552 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, the temperature decreases as it changes to yellow, orange, and red. The human eye can distinguish the light of a lit candle at a distance of up to 29.83 miles, but it must be on a night with little moonlight and in an environment without light pollution. According to a scientific estimate, an average cloud weighs the same as 11 adult elephants. The denser or grayer a cloud is, the heavier it is. Lobsters have teeth in their stomach that they use to chew their food. They are structures similar to molars that move to grind the food. Oranges do not have as much vitamin C as one might think. Foods such as guavas, peppers, and broccoli have more than twice this vitamin per gram. Birds usually fly in a V formation to reduce air resistance and conserve energy. Birds take turns going to the front, and when they get tired, they move to the back. There are more microorganisms living in a spoonful of soil taken from a forest or jungle than the number of people living in the entire world. According to research, more than 7,000 people die each year due to doctors' poor handwriting. When trying to interpret the prescription, they receive the wrong medication. All species that currently exist in the world are descendants of the 4% of species that survived the Great Permian-Triassic extinction, which occurred 248 million years ago. Skittles-type candies and jelly beans contain an ingredient made from insect shells that is used as a candy coating to give them their characteristic shine. Mustard does not require refrigeration and can last indefinitely without spoiling or developing mold thanks to its antibacterial properties and its acidity. However, this is not recommended because it can dry out, lose its flavor, or turn brown. Wild bananas are full of seeds and are very small. The ones we can buy in supermarkets were selectively cultivated over the years so that the seeds would be tiny. Crying is actually very healthy for you. It not only helps emotionally, but also lubricates your eyes, removes toxins and irritants, and reduces stress. In addition, emotional tears contain hormones related to stress, so releasing them can create a sense of physical and mental relief. The inventor of the Rubik's Cube, Erno Rubik, took an entire month to solve it before presenting it to the world. This was because he initially did not know if the puzzle had a solution, which made his own invention a challenge even for him. There is a metal called gallium that melts in your hand. It has a very low melting point, so it can go from solid to liquid with body heat, making it popular in scientific demonstrations. And it also expands when it solidifies, which can break containers if it cools inside them. Volvo invented the three-point seatbelt, but released the patents for any car manufacturer to use because they believed it had more value as a life-saving tool than as something to profit from, which allowed its global adoption and has helped save millions of lives since then. In real life, a roadrunner can only reach speeds of around 20 miles per hour, while a coyote can reach speeds of up to 43 miles per hour. Despite this difference, the roadrunner makes up for it with great agility, quick changes of direction, and reflexes that help it escape predators. It is possible for a cat to be its own fraternal twin. These cats, known as chimera cats, are a rarity that occurs when two fertilized eggs merge. This can result in unique coat patterns, such as faces split into two perfectly distinct colors. Backpfeifengesicht is a German word that means a face that urgently needs a punch. It is an example of the direct humor of the German language, which combines several words to describe very specific concepts in a precise and forceful way. The Eucalyptus deglupta, better known as the rainbow tree, is a tree that sheds its outer bark to reveal a bright green inner bark that turns blue, purple, orange, and maroon as it matures. This process occurs in irregular patches, creating a continuous, multicolored effect that changes over time, especially in tropical climates where it grows more intensely. There is a hybrid rose called the tiger-striped rose. These flowers have petals with contrasting line or stripe patterns, achieved through selective breeding, and they are highly valued in ornamental gardening for their unique and striking appearance. Their look varies depending on the variety and growing conditions. The strongest beer in the world is called snake venom, with 67.5% alcohol, and it is so strong that it comes with a warning label on the neck of the bottle. Due to its high alcohol content, it is recommended to consume it in very small quantities, similar to distilled spirits rather than a conventional beer. It is produced in limited quantities, and its process includes special techniques to increase alcohol concentration. There is a fish in SpongeBob SquarePants that has appeared in multiple episodes with a clearly visible penis. This is due to unintentional animation details or visual jokes, since the series is primarily aimed at a children's audience and does not deliberately include explicit content. A baby octopus can be as small as the tip of your finger. At birth, many species are almost microscopic and are part of plankton, where they spend their early stages of life before growing and developing their adult characteristics. During this phase, they float in the open ocean and are highly vulnerable, so only a small fraction survive to adulthood. The pinky promise originated in Japan, where it indicated that if someone broke a promise, they had to cut off their little finger. Over time, this practice became a symbolic gesture among children and adults, maintaining the idea of commitment without the literal punishment. In Japanese culture, the little finger is associated with loyalty, which reinforces the emotional value of this gesture. Hyperthymesia is an extremely rare condition that allows some people to remember with great precision details of almost every day of their lives. Several dozen cases have been documented worldwide, and those who have it can recall specific dates along with personal and public events without conscious effort. It is actually possible to die from a broken heart. It is known as broken heart syndrome, and the medical term is stress-induced cardiomyopathy. This condition is usually triggered by intense emotions such as the loss of a loved one or a sudden shock, and it causes symptoms similar to a heart attack, although the heart does not show blocked arteries. The marshmallow plant has been used for centuries medicinally to treat things like sore throats, but in the 19th century, someone had the idea to mix it with sugar and egg whites so children could take it more easily, which turned out so well that it remained as the popular candy we consume to this day, marshmallows. In 2005, a 4-year-old boy from Texas, United States, who was searching for fossils, ended up finding dinosaur bones more than 100 million years old. The discovery occurred on a ranch near Dallas and was later examined by paleontologists who confirmed they belonged to a herbivorous dinosaur from the Cretaceous period. In some countries, according to certain legends, rhinoceroses are known as the firefighters of the animal kingdom, since it is said that when they see fire, they run to put it out with their feet. However, this has not been confirmed by science, and may even be more like a joke. Yale University has a rare books and manuscripts library with no windows, but instead it has walls made entirely of translucent marble that prevent the books from being exposed to direct sunlight. This design allows diffused, natural light to pass through while protecting materials that are extremely sensitive to deterioration. An inventor from ancient Greece named Heron of Alexandria invented the first vending machine, which dispensed holy water when you inserted a coin. In addition, he also invented the steam engine and the first wind-powered machine, all of this 2,000 years before the Industrial Revolution. There is a phenomenon that occurs in the Mekong River in Thailand, where red fireballs, called Naga fireballs, shoot randomly into the air, and no one knows why it happens. These lights usually appear on certain nights of the year, especially in October. And although there are theories pointing to flammable natural gases, there is still no widely accepted scientific explanation. In Ecuador, there is a swing that hangs at the edge of a cliff called the Swing at the End of the World, which is attached to a treehouse, and those who ride it do not wear any protection. In addition, it is only about 1.86 miles from the crater of the Tungurahua volcano. Outside the Tate Britain Gallery in London, there is a public restroom enclosed in a glass cube made entirely of one-way glass, where you can see passers-by, but they cannot see you. That is a test of courage. The word boycott originated from Charles Boycott, an agent who collected rent on farms in Ireland on behalf of the British. The farmers demanded a reduction. Boycott refused and evicted them. Instead of attacking him, the farmers decided not to do business with him. They boycotted him. An adult giraffe's tongue measures approximately 21 inches long. In addition, it is dark in color, which helps protect it from sunburn while it feeds for long hours under the sun in the African savannas. It is also extremely strong and flexible, allowing it to wrap around branches and thorny leaves without injuring itself. The word barbarian originated in ancient Greece. Its use became popular to refer to foreign people, and the Greeks thought those languages sounded like they were just saying bar, 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 which is why barbarian. There is a large town on an island in Wales called Llanfair Pwllgwyngyr Gogerechwyn Drobuch Llantysilio Gogogoch. Its name was lengthened in the 19th century as a publicity strategy to attract visitors, and it describes in Welsh the location of a church near a whirlpool and a white tree. The Pittsburgh Steelers are among the only 7 NFL teams that do not have cheerleaders. They have not had them since 1969. Apple, Google, HP, Amazon, Disney, Harley-Davidson, and Microsoft started in garages. Although in some cases the garage was more symbolic than operational, these stories reflect the humble beginnings of several technological and creative companies that later became global giants, driven by small teams, limited resources, and a strong culture of innovation that shaped their later growth. The city of New York paid $5 million in 1853 for the land that Central Park now occupies. Currently, the cost of that place would be $530 billion, since it is located in one of the areas where the cost per square foot is among the most expensive. The distance between Europe and Africa is only about 9 miles. Such a short distance, in fact, that there has even been discussion of creating a massive bridge between the two continents across the Strait of Gibraltar. However, technical, political, and environmental challenges have prevented this type of project from being carried out so far. On December 30, 1899 at midnight, a ship positioned itself at the intersection of the dateline and the equator so that the bow and stern occupied different seasons, hemispheres, days, years, and centuries. For the ship, December 31 never occurred. To this day, Japan and Russia have not signed a formal peace treaty to officially end hostilities from World War II. This is mainly due to a territorial dispute over the Southern Kuril Islands, known in Japan as the Northern Territories, a disagreement that has persisted for decades. In New York City, over the past 50 years, the price of a slice of pizza has increased at the same pace as the price of a subway ticket, being almost the same, and when one rises, the other follows immediately. There are at least 3 books in the Harvard University Library that, according to historical records, were bound using unusual materials, a practice that in past centuries was not completely uncommon in certain medical and scientific contexts. Brides normally stand on the left at wedding ceremonies so that the groom has his sword hand free in case someone tries to attack him and carry off his future wife, although that almost never happens these days. There is a phobia called the Jonah complex, which causes a person to fear their own success, preventing them from reaching their full potential. This concept comes from humanistic psychology and describes a form of self-sabotage related to fear of change or taking on great responsibilities. Until the 18th century, people preferred to paint the walls of their homes with reflective, glossy paint because light bulbs had not yet been invented, and the only way to illuminate was with candles. This paint reflected firelight and illuminated the room better. On Good Friday in 1930, the BBC announced that there was no news, followed by piano music. At that time, news programming was limited, and when there were no significant events, the time was simply filled with music instead of additional content, also reflecting a more formal and slower tone in media of that era. A prison in Indiana, United States, allows inmates to adopt cats in their cells. The program was implemented to reduce stress and encourage responsibility among the inmates, who care for rescued animals. In addition to improving coexistence, it has helped many cats find permanent homes after the adoption process. Internet addiction disorder, also known as IAD, is a real mental disorder in which someone engages in addictive, compulsive, or pathological internet use. Although it is not officially recognized in all diagnostic manuals, it is widely studied and can affect social, work, and emotional life. Plastic flamingos began to be manufactured in 1957 and immediately became one of the favorite garden decorations. So much so that a few decades later, the number of plastic flamingos far exceeded the number of real flamingos. For every real flamingo, there are 7 plastic ones. At the end of the 1990s, BMW had to withdraw its satellite navigation systems because male German drivers did not want to receive instructions from a female voice. The company responded by offering alternative voice options, showing how cultural factors can influence technology design. There are scientists working on a magical spray that can heal skin wounds in just a few minutes. In reality, it involves biomaterials and solutions with cells or regenerative compounds that accelerate healing, stimulate collagen production, and reduce infections. Technologies that are already being tested in hospitals and laboratories. Snoop Dogg released a smokable book called Rolling Words that has pages filled with lyrics from his own songs that you can tear out and use as rolling paper. It was a limited promotional edition created with chemical-free hemp paper, intended more as a collector's item than for daily use, and it reflected his public image linked to cannabis culture. The actor Daniel Craig, who portrayed James Bond in 5 movies, has a clause in his contract that states he can take any Aston Martin car he wants from any dealership for free for life. Doritos could be made without the powder and taste exactly the same, but the company adds it intentionally because they believe it is part of the Doritos experience. That coating also affects texture, aroma, and how the flavor is perceived when eating them. Smarter people can make a sarcastic remark faster than people who are not that smart. Studies on cognition suggest that sarcasm requires processing literal information and then reinterpreting it with the opposite intention, which involves mental speed, cognitive flexibility, and a strong ability to read social context. The iPhone 5S with 64 gigabytes had an estimated manufacturing cost of around $218, according to industry analyses at the time. However, its retail price was up to $849 without a contract, reflecting margins that also include research, marketing, and distribution. In addition, the final price considers software development and ecosystem. The British pound sterling is the oldest currency still in use. It is around 1,200 years old. It originated in the 8th century during the reign of King Offa of Mercia, and its name comes from the weight of 1 pound of sterling silver used as a reference. In Switzerland, if you fail your driving test 3 times, you are required to consult an official psychologist to evaluate the reasons for your previous failures before you are allowed to take the test again. This process aims to determine whether there are behavioral or stress-related factors affecting driving. Penguins often push one of their companions into the water to see if the area is safe and free of predators. This behavior is especially observed in large colonies, where they must avoid leopard seals and orcas, their main predators, which often lurk near the ice, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Helium is a limited resource on Earth, since it forms slowly and can escape into space once released. Although for years it was estimated that it could run out within a few decades, new discoveries and improvements in production have extended reserves, so an imminent shortage is not expected, although its availability remains a long-term concern. In addition, it is essential for medical and technological applications, such as magnetic resonance imaging equipment. Chex Quest was the first video game that was included for free in a cereal. It appeared as a prize in Chex cereal in 1996. If you arrange the first letters of the main characters' names in the movie Inception, Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Saito, it spells dreams. This detail was intentional and reflects the central theme of the film related to dreams and the manipulation of the mind. When the final episode of the show MASH aired around 43 years ago, it was watched by more than 100 million people. When it ended, nearly 7 million gallons of water flowed through New York's sewer system because many people waited to go to the bathroom until the episode was over. Sewer monitors also record a noticeable increase in flow during halftime and at the end of sporting events. Mount Everest is home to the remains of more than 200 people who have lost their lives during expeditions, and in some cases, these remain on the mountain and serve as visible landmarks for climbers on their way to the summit. The extreme conditions make it difficult to recover the bodies, which explains why they remain there. In Saudi Arabia, women cannot enter public swimming pools. They can only swim in private places and in women-only spas and gyms. Psychologist Laszlo Polgar claimed that any child could become a genius and a prodigy at anything if given intensive early training. As part of his experiment, he trained his daughters to play chess starting at age 4. All 3 became experts, and the youngest, Judith, is considered to this day the greatest female chess player of all time. In China, it became popular for a time for some Uber drivers to change their profile photos to zombies or ghosts. This was so that when passengers saw them, they would cancel the ride before pickup, allowing the drivers to collect the cancellation fee. Obviously, they were fired. Koi fish can live for many decades, and, under ideal conditions, some have reached exceptionally advanced stages. A famous case is that of a scarlet koi named Hanako, who, according to Japanese records, is said to have lived approximately 226 years before dying in 1977. However, this figure is based on traditional estimates and scale analysis, so not all scientists consider it fully verifiable. The United States would have adopted the metric system if the French scientist Joseph Dombey had arrived safely to help President Thomas Jefferson persuade Congress to change the system of measurement. However, Joseph Dombey had some trouble with pirates, so he never arrived. That is why the United States still uses ounces and miles and all that. In 2012, Turkish archaeologists discovered what may be the oldest meme in the world. A 2,000-year-old mosaic showing a very relaxed skeleton reclining with wine and bread around it, and the inscription, "Be cheerful, live your life." A Russian boy named Ivan Mishakov was raised by a pack of dogs from age 4 to 6. When he was found and police tried to separate him from the dogs, they defended him and did not allow him to be taken until authorities finally managed to do so by distracting the dogs with food. Facebook tracks and records your IP addresses, as well as the address of every website you visit that uses any of its social plugins, such as the like button. You do not need to be logged in or even have an account. This is due to tracking systems using cookies and scripts embedded in millions of web pages, This data is mainly used to personalize content and advertising. Nine-time Olympic swimming champion Mark Spitz told the Russians in 1972 that his mustache helped him reach higher speeds in the water because it kept water away from his mouth. Obviously, he said it as a joke, but the following year, the entire Russian team had mustaches. In Canada, it is illegal to pretend to perform witchcraft. However, it is completely legal to actually practice witchcraft. The law prohibits pretending to have supernatural powers with the intention of defrauding or deceiving someone, but it does not punish personal beliefs or spiritual practices carried out without fraud or harm. The famous theme song of the show The X-Files was created almost by accident when composer Mark Snow rested his arm on the keyboard while the echo effect was turned on. The producers liked the eerie tone of the effect, so they kept it. In the Middle Ages, women who talked too much were punished by being forced to wear a type of metal cage on their heads that covered their mouths. On October 10, 2017, in just that single day, the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, earned $6.2 billion. In a small region of Australia, you can find these mini kangaroos, or marsupials, called quokkas, which are very friendly and seem to be smiling and having a great time all the time. If this does not cheer you up, then I do not know what will. Will Smith's real name is Willard, not William, even though his character in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was named William, so everyone assumed that was his real name. The Beast from Disney's Beauty and the Beast is a creature called a chimera, with the characteristics and body parts of 7 different animals. Its design includes traits of a lion, buffalo, gorilla, bear, boar, wolf, and human, giving it a unique appearance meant to reflect both strength and sensitivity in the character. It also helps make it intimidating yet empathetic. Paul Rudd, the actor who appeared in Friends and plays Ant-Man in Marvel movies and many others, starred in a Super Nintendo commercial in 1991 and somehow looks exactly the same as he does now. He is part of the same Immortals Club as Keanu Reeves. Musician Frank Zappa was an enthusiast of futuristic technologies, so much so that he recorded footage of himself in the 1970s to be used by holographic machines when the technology reached that point. And apparently it has, because his hologram is currently on a world tour. The movie Space Jam was for many years the highest-grossing basketball movie of all time, thanks to its huge box office success and cultural impact. However, that record was surpassed by Space Jam: A New Legacy, which achieved a higher global gross. Even so, the original version remains more remembered for its influence on pop culture. Facebook creates shadow profiles of people who have not yet registered on the site, using information from their friends' contacts, such as emails, phone numbers, photos, and addresses. That means that even if you do not have Facebook, they already have you identified. The largest scale model of the solar system is in Sweden. It is built at a scale of 1 to 20 million and measures 590 miles. In Russia, an experiment has been taking place for many years that selectively breeds foxes in order to domesticate them. After several generations, these foxes have developed changes, such as improved social abilities, larger ears, curlier tails, and skeletal changes, traits that make them more appealing to humans. Just like dogs, which now look very cute even though they were once wolves. The Prince Charles Cinema in London has volunteer ninjas who quietly approach and silence anyone in the theater who is making noise or throwing things. This term is used humorously to describe their staff, known for enforcing rules firmly, but in an entertaining way to maintain the atmosphere. There is a website called fakeupdate.net, where you can display a fake update screen or a fake Windows blue screen on your computer. It has keyboard shortcuts so you can switch quickly and no one questions what you are looking at during work. A software company called PC Pitstop once hit a $1,000 prize in its terms of service just to see if anyone would read them. After 5 months and more than 3,000 sales, someone finally claimed the prize, showing how little attention most people pay to this type of legal document. Project Orion consisted of building spacecraft and sending rockets into space using nuclear explosions as the main fuel. The United States government seriously considered carrying it out in the 1950s and the 1960s, but in the end they did not because nuclear bombs had to be used. The famous painter Salvador Dali avoided paying restaurant bills by drawing on the back of his checks. He knew that the owner would not want to cash the checks, since the drawings would be much more valuable. This strategy also reinforced his eccentric image, and contributed to increasing the artistic value of anything he touched. In addition, he turned everyday moments into part of his own artistic performance. In 1982, a company called Italdesign introduced a modular car called Capsule, in which the cabin could be completely replaced to turn it into a totally different type of vehicle. It could be converted into a crane, an ambulance, or a regular family car. But apparently nobody paid attention to the idea because it remained only a prototype. It could have completely changed the automobile industry. Bruce Lee was so fast that he could snatch a dime from an open palm and replace it with a penny, all before the person could close their fist. The largest comic book collection is located in the Library of Congress of the United States, with 120,000 different editions, while the largest private collection belongs to Pop Retail with a little over 100,000. In 1919, Walt Disney was fired from the Kansas City Star because, according to his editor, he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. This episode happened when he was working as a young illustrator, and over time, it became one of the most cited anecdotes about how early rejection did not prevent him from developing one of the most influential careers in animation. Lake Chagan in Kazakhstan is the only lake that has been artificially created by a nuclear test. This happened on January 15, 1965. The bottom of this place has a glass-like surface because the rocks there melted during the explosion. Currently, swimming or fishing there is still prohibited. Ryan Gosling was cast for the role of Noah in the movie The Notebook because the director wanted someone who was not handsome. According to the director himself, he was looking for a more ordinary face to make the character more relatable and believable within the story. Walt Disney World in Florida, with an area of more than 24.7 square miles, is almost the size of San Francisco, or 2 Manhattan Islands combined. A group of owls is called a parliament, a group of crows is called a murder, and a group of turkeys is called a rafter. These collective names mostly come from English and literary traditions that became popular in the Middle Ages, where creative, humorous, or symbolic terms were assigned to groups of animals. Many of these names were compiled in texts such as the Book of St. Albans from 1486, which helped standardize this type of expression. When humans domesticated wolves unintentionally, we were promoting a syndrome that all dogs now have, which is characterized by cognitive difficulties, but especially the tendency to be hypersocial and to like all people. Atelophobia is the fear of not being good enough or of having imperfections. It is often related to extreme perfectionism and fear of failure, affecting self-esteem and leading to avoidance of situations where a person feels they may be judged. Harrison Okene is a man who survived at the bottom of the ocean in a sunken ship because he found an air pocket, that is, trapped air inside the ship. Falling coconuts kill 15 times more people than shark attacks each year. Although this figure is often cited, it is difficult to verify precisely, but it is known that coconut-related accidents do occur and can be dangerous in areas where palm trees are abundant. A mature coconut can weigh several pounds and fall from great height with enough force to cause serious injury. The deepest indoor swimming pool in the world is Nemo 33. It is located in Brussels, Belgium, and is 104.99 feet deep. It is generally used by divers for training. At the Crocodile Cove Aquarium in Australia, there is a popular tourist attraction called the Cage of Death that allows you to get up close to giant crocodiles. Visitors enter a transparent capsule that is lowered into the water, offering an intense but safe experience with these predators. Speaking more than one language makes the brain more agile and increases the intelligence quotient. Various studies suggest that bilingualism strengthens attention, working memory, and the ability to switch tasks, since the brain must constantly manage 2 linguistic systems, which can delay certain effects of cognitive aging. Pasado mañana is a word that means the day after tomorrow. It is one of the few words in Spanish that expresses a specific time concept in a single word, something that in other languages usually requires more than one. Caretakers and all people who enter the Sundarbans Tiger Reserve in Bengal must wear masks on the back of their heads to make it appear that they are facing forward even when their backs are turned. This is because Bengal tigers only attack from behind. You can make your own Gatorade at home simply by adding salt to some Kool-Aid. It is not the exact recipe, but it has the same amount of electrolytes. However, commercial versions also include sugars and minerals in specific proportions to optimize hydration during exercise. The Lord of the Rings is not a trilogy. It was a complete book. But for publishers, it was easier to print 3 small books than one giant one. J.R.R. Tolkien conceived it as a single work internally divided into 6 books. But in 1954 and 1955, it was published in 3 volumes for economic and printing logistical reasons. The longest-lived person in the world whose age has been verified was the Japanese woman Misao Okawa, who lived 117 years. She passed away in 2015, but the current record is held by the French woman Jeanne Calment, who reached 122 years, a number that has not been surpassed in a documented way to this day. The country that has had the most volcanoes erupt in the past 12,000 years is the United States, with 161. It is followed by Japan, with 122, and Indonesia with 121. Chile is in 5th place with 92, and Mexico in 9th place with 37. There is a movie from 2010 called Rubber, about a killer car tire named Robert that rolls around killing people and blowing things up. The film is known for its surreal style and unconventional narrative, becoming a cult classic within independent cinema, as well as breaking the fourth wall and playing with the idea that not everything needs a logical reason. The International Space Station is the most expensive thing ever built so far. It has already cost $150 billion. The project involves several space agencies and has been continuously inhabited for more than 2 decades, functioning as an orbiting laboratory for scientific research in microgravity. The traffic jam on China National Highway 110 is considered the longest traffic jam in history. It stretched for more than 62 miles and lasted nearly 11 days, affecting thousands of drivers who moved only a few miles per day due to road construction and excess cargo. Education was declared a fundamental human right in the African country of Zimbabwe in 1980 by President Robert Mugabe. Thanks to this, almost 90% of the population can read and write, one of the highest percentages in Africa. The descendants of 2 pairs of identical twins are legally cousins, but genetically siblings. This happens because the parents share the same DNA with each other, which makes their children genetically closer than usual. More than 1,700 words used today were invented by William Shakespeare. Although not all were created from scratch, he was the first to record them in writing or to give them new meanings. Many arose by combining Latin and Germanic roots, greatly expanding the vocabulary of modern English. Human brain cells, the universe, and the internet have similar structures. Studies have compared the organization of neural networks with the distribution of galaxies and digital nodes, finding similar patterns in how they connect and are distributed, although they serve completely different functions. These similarities are observed in mathematical models of complex networks. The Curiosities doubletree, located in Italy, is unique because, as its name suggests, it is 2 trees in one, a cherry tree growing on top of a mulberry tree. The largest natural bridge in the world is the Ferry Bridge in China, and it was virtually unknown to the rest of the world until it was spotted on Google Maps. Its enormous size and remote location made it difficult to study for years, until satellite images made it more accessible to the public. In the 1970s, red M&Ms were removed because health risks were reported in the dye they used. As a result, a student named Paul Hedman created an organization called the Society for the Restoration and Preservation of Red M&Ms. It became very famous and eventually contributed to the return of the red candies to the packages. The reported risk of the dye turned out to be false. Sea otters hold hands while they sleep so they do not drift away from each other. They also often wrap their bodies in seaweed as natural anchors, which allows them to stay together in groups and avoid separating while resting in open waters. This behavior also helps strengthen social bonds within their groups. On the coast of Australia, there is an island where a pair of dogs protect a colony of small penguins that was constantly threatened by foxes. Since the arrival of the dogs, the penguin population increased from only 10 to 200. Donkeys can be used to protect livestock. They attack intruders by instinct, kicking and biting them, and they can be much braver than they seem. They have a strong territorial instinct and can confront coyotes, dogs, and even mountain lions, which is why many farmers use them to protect sheep and goats. Henry Ford wanted to manufacture private, personal airplanes that were cheap and easy to use so that everyone could fly to their destinations daily. Unfortunately, the idea was abandoned when a prototype crashed during a test flight. The word muggle has been added to the Oxford Dictionary and is defined as a person who lacks a particular skill. The term became popular thanks to the Harry Potter series, and its inclusion reflects how popular culture can directly influence everyday language. Today, it is also used informally to refer to someone without knowledge in a specific subject. Life in New England, when the colonists first arrived in what would become the United States, was so difficult that when Native Americans captured and took members of the colony, including children, sometimes they did not even want to return. Adolphe Sax, the inventor of the saxophone, survived a fall from 3 floors, a gunpowder explosion, and falling into a raging river, among other things, all before turning 9 years old. The sales website eBay reported that due to the popularity of Fortnite, sales of gaming headphones and computer monitors increased by 35%. Bubble wrap was originally invented in 1957 to be sold as wallpaper. Its creators were trying to produce a decoration with a 3-dimensional texture, but when it failed in that use, they discovered its potential as protective packaging material. Over time, it became a widely used product in shipping. The famous pyramids of Egypt were close to being dismantled 180 years ago. Their blocks were going to be used to build dams on the Nile River. Fortunately, the project leader saved them by submitting a false expense report stating that dismantling them was not worth it. The hand of the Statue of Liberty was displayed in Madison Square Park for 6 years before the full statue was installed. It was a gift from France, but the United States did not want to pay for the pedestal, so they raised money by selling photographs to tourists for 50 cents. Shortly after, it was installed as we know it today. The Three Gorges Dam in China is so large that it has reduced the Earth's rotation time by 0.06 microseconds. This is because its enormous mass of water slightly changes the distribution of the planet's weight, an effect similar to a figure skater changing speed by moving their arms. The man who designed Saddam Hussein's secret bunker was the grandson of the woman who designed Adolf Hitler's. This historical coincidence has been cited as a curious example of how certain military engineering knowledge can be passed down through generations. It also reflects unexpected connections between different periods in history. In 2012, a teenager drank a beverage containing liquid nitrogen that he was given for his birthday at a bar in England, but he drank it without waiting for the dangerous substance to evaporate. He had to be treated urgently, and the bar had to pay a fine of £100,000. If you are 45 years old or older, the world population has doubled since you were born. In 1980, there were around 4,400,000,000 people, and today there are more than 8 billion, thanks to advances in medicine, food, and better living conditions. In 1952, there was an equivalent to IMAX format projections. This method was called Cinerama and consisted of projecting 3 parts of the same film onto a giant curved screen. However, it stopped being used in 1962 because it required 3 film reels running simultaneously in perfect synchronization, which was very difficult to achieve. If you search Zerg Rush on Google, the search engine will eat the results page. This was an Easter egg inspired by the video game StarCraft, where small letters would invade the screen. Although it was later removed, it can still be experienced in archived versions or online simulators. It became one of the platform's most memorable tricks. Skyhook was a method designed to lift a person from the ground using an airplane without landing. For the first tests, they used a pig, but the test did not go very well, and the animal spun uncontrollably in the air. When they finally brought it into the airplane, it attacked the entire crew. According to the famous chef Gordon Ramsay, the 5 dishes everyone should learn to cook are a great burger, a good breakfast, a braised meat dish, a chicken dish, and a delicious cake. According to an anti-piracy monitoring company, 90% of the people who watched Game of Thrones did so illegally. For example, the first episode of the 7th season was pirated by 182 million people. Only 16 million watched it legally. There is a famous donut company called Voodoo Donut that also makes beer based on the flavors of the donuts they produce. This includes bacon and maple syrup beer, and chocolate, peanut butter, and banana beer. These collaborations are usually done with craft breweries and aim to replicate sweet flavors in liquid form. Sergei Bubka, a pole vault athlete, broke the world record 14 times by the smallest possible margin on purpose over a period of 2 years. He did this because he had a contract with the brand Nike that gave him a bonus each time he broke the world record. Thomas Jefferson, during his presidency of the United States, had a sheep that he described as an abominable animal. He kept it in front of the White House, where it attacked several people, including a child in 1808. In 1952, a double-decker bus was crossing Tower Bridge in London, England, when suddenly the process to raise the bridge failed. The driver had quick enough reflexes to accelerate and successfully cross to the other side with a spectacular jump. In the end, the consequences were only a few scratches and a scare, and the driver received a 10-pound bonus for saving everyone. The solitaire game that comes with all Windows computers was developed by an intern named Wes Cherry, who never received royalties for his creation despite it being one of the most used programs of all time. In 2011, a man named Richard James Verone robbed a bank for $1 so that he could be sent to jail and receive free medical care, since he had no insurance or resources to pay for his treatment, which sparked debate about the healthcare system in the United States. An average cloud, like the ones you see daily in the sky, weighs around 551 short tons. Even though they look light and fluffy, they are made of millions of tiny water droplets suspended in the air, kept balanced by upward currents that prevent them from immediately falling as rain. Anooptophobia is the fear of staying single or marrying the wrong person. Although it is not a very common term in clinical psychology, it reflects a real social anxiety related to cultural pressure about marriage and expectations of life as a couple. It can manifest in impulsive decisions or in avoiding relationships due to fear of making a mistake. The oldest video game record that has not yet been beaten was set by Todd Rogers in the Atari 2600 game Dragster in 1982, which he completed in 5.51 seconds. It even surpassed the theoretical limit established by the programmers of 5.54 seconds. Falling in love produces a similar high to consuming substances. This is due to the release of dopamine in the brain, associated with pleasure, motivation, and reward. Although in the case of love, hormones such as oxytocin and serotonin also play a role in attachment and mood. There is a Coca-Cola machine in Singapore that says, "Hug me," and gives free cans of soda to anyone who hugs it. This type of machine was part of advertising campaigns designed to generate emotional interaction and virality on social media. The initiative aims to promote positive messages such as connection and shared happiness. If we had to use all the batteries that currently exist in the world as energy backup without generating any additional energy, they would be depleted in just 10 minutes. Rowan Atkinson, the actor who played Mr. Bean, once saved a plane from crashing after the pilot fainted, despite never having flown a plane before. According to accounts, he managed to maintain control momentarily until the pilot regained consciousness, preventing a possible tragedy. Although the actor himself has mentioned that the situation was brief and under indirect supervision. There is a building on Fenchurch Street in London that reflects the sun so well that it has melted the bodywork of cars. It is the skyscraper nicknamed the Walkie-Talkie, officially called 20 Fenchurch Street, whose curved glass facade concentrated sunlight like a concave mirror, raising the temperature so much that it damaged parked vehicles. Volkswagen owns Audi, Bentley, Bugatti, Lamborghini, Porsche, and Ducati. Through the Volkswagen Group, the company has acquired several brands over the years, forming one of the largest automotive conglomerates in the world. This group includes everything from luxury vehicles to motorcycles and high-performance sports cars. Opossums have a pink glow when observed under ultraviolet light, and the exact reason or purpose of this glow is still not known. In addition, they are among the marsupials with the lowest body temperature, so low that the rabies virus cannot survive in their bodies. Monowi, Nebraska is the smallest incorporated municipality in the United States, with a population of only 1. Its sole resident, Elsie Eiler, is both the town's mayor and librarian. She manages basic services herself, pays local taxes, and keeps the community alive. A grizzly bear bite can crush a bowling ball. It is estimated that its bite force far exceeds that of most land mammals, with pressure capable of crushing thick bones. This power allows them to feed on large prey and defend themselves effectively in the wild. The former president of Uruguay, José Mujica, was known as one of the most austere leaders in the world, since during his presidency, he donated around 90% of his salary to charitable organizations and social projects. Instead of living in the presidential residence, he continued living in his modest rural home on the outskirts of Montevideo, which reinforced his image of simplicity. After leaving office in 2015, he maintained that lifestyle and continued to be a symbolic figure of austerity and personal integrity. The first firefighters in Rome organized themselves to create a profitable business. They would arrive at fires and do nothing until they agreed on a price to put out the fire. If they did not reach an agreement, they would leave or wait for everything to burn out and offer to buy the land at a very low price. 75% of households in Japan have high-tech toilets where it is not necessary to use toilet paper. They can also keep you warm, check your blood pressure, make water sounds for privacy, open and close on their own so you do not have to touch anything, and I think they even talk. Cameron Diaz and Snoop Dogg attended high school together. In fact, she has mentioned in interviews that they went to the same school in California, which shows how unexpected some connections between celebrities can be before they become famous. 1 tablespoon of natural maple syrup contains more calcium than the equivalent amount of milk and more potassium than a banana. In addition, it is a source of magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, and iron. In Canada, they have a national maple reserve that equals 12.35 ounces per citizen of the country. There is a charity in the United Kingdom and the United States called Project Prevention that pays $300 to addicts to be sterilized. To this day, they have paid more than 4,000 participants. The initiative has generated controversy due to ethical concerns related to consent and vulnerability. In addition to being a model and actress, Cara Delevingne is also a songwriter, plays the drums, and likes to play video games, especially Call of Duty. Bon Jovi has a restaurant in New Jersey called Soul Kitchen, where there are no fixed prices. Instead, customers donate money or volunteer to pay for their meal, with the goal of helping people facing food insecurity and encouraging community support. Kaby Lame, known for the videos in which she makes fun of life hacks, is the most followed Italian TikToker. Despite that, and having lived almost his entire life in Italy, he does not have an Italian passport or citizenship due to the strict immigration laws in the country. He was born in Senegal, but moved with his parents to Italy when he was 1 year old. When the domestic parcel service was first introduced by the United States Postal Service in 1913, it was legal to mail children as long as they weighed less than 48 pounds. Some parents took advantage of this rule for a short time before it was explicitly banned for safety reasons. The video game Tropico 5 is banned by the dictatorship in Thailand because, according to them, it is a threat to national security. Cows have best friends and can become stressed when separated from them. Studies have shown that they form stable social bonds within the herd and that their heart rate can increase when they are separated from their close companions, indicating a more complex level of attachment than previously thought. The director and screenwriter Aaron Sorkin, known for movies such as The Social Network, once mentioned in an interview that he sometimes showers many times a day. He does this to combat writer's block. If he cannot continue writing, he showers, dresses differently, and tries again. The iTunes user agreement explicitly states that you are not allowed to use the program to manufacture nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. This clause is a standard legal measure that limits the use of software in dangerous or illegal activities, although in practice, it is more preventive than enforceable. Because Studio Ghibli retained the promotional rights to the movie Spirited Away, the advertising Disney gave it was very limited. The movie was only mentioned in a small section on Disney's official website. It received less publicity than movies that went straight to DVD, like The Lion King 4 and those. Steve Jobs' last words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." According to his family, he said them while looking at his loved ones, and they have been interpreted as an expression of awe in his final moments. His sister mentioned that he was looking beyond them, which has led to different interpretations about what he might have perceived at that moment. The Chevrolet Suburban has its own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This was in honor of its more than 2,000 appearances in movies since 1960. It is the first inanimate object to have a star in that place. In China, wealthy and powerful people who break the law often hire body doubles to serve their prison time. Although it is a highly debated practice and difficult to verify broadly, it has been reported in isolated cases and reflects concerns about corruption and inequality in the judicial system. Vikings had swords made with steel that would not be used again until the Industrial Revolution 800 years later. Many of these weapons, known as Ulfbert swords, were made with very pure, high-carbon steel, unusual for medieval Europe. It is believed the metal may have arrived through trade routes from Asia. Humans have fewer chromosomes than a potato. While humans have 46 chromosomes, some varieties of potatoes can have up to 48, showing that a greater number of chromosomes does not necessarily imply greater biological complexity, since their function and organization are far more important than the total number. The Romans had a formula to make concrete that was lost after the fall of the Roman Empire, until it was reinvented many years later. They made it by mixing lime and volcanic rock, which then had a chemical reaction helped by sea algae. Carmen del Orefice is considered the oldest working model in the world. She began modeling at the age of 15 and remains active today at over 90 years old, staying relevant in the fashion industry. She has appeared in campaigns, runways, and magazines, challenging traditional age standards in modeling. Giant rats from sub-Saharan Africa are trained to detect tuberculosis, which is the second deadliest infectious disease. Although they are not currently an accepted diagnostic technique, one rat is capable of evaluating more samples in 10 minutes than a scientist in a laboratory during an entire day. We know more about what exists on the surface of the moon than what exists in Earth's oceans. Although much of the ocean floor remains unexplored in detail, this statement is often exaggerated, since we do have fairly complete maps of ocean topography, though not of all its biodiversity, especially in deep areas where extreme pressure and darkness make direct research difficult. Sterling silver objects, a designation used to know if something is truly made of silver, are not actually 100% silver. A small amount of copper is added because pure silver is very soft and would bend very easily. One of the oldest and most famous roads in Rome is the Appian Way. It was built in 312 BC and is still used today. It originally connected Rome with southern Italy and was key for trade and military movement in the Roman Empire, standing out for its durable engineering with large stone slabs that have allowed its preservation over the centuries. Steven Spielberg waited 10 years to make Schindler's List because he did not feel mature enough to tackle such a deep and emotionally heavy story about the Holocaust. During that time, he even tried to have other directors direct it, and only took it on when he felt that his own life and experiences gave him the necessary maturity to treat the subject with respect and realism. GhostSingles.com is a real dating site for ghosts. The site exists as a humorous concept on the internet and is designed to entertain, allowing users to create fictional profiles and explore the idea of dating in a paranormal context, including imaginary stories, supernatural descriptions, and creative messages that parody traditional online dating platforms. The experts who maintain IMAX theater projectors have to wear protective suits similar to bulletproof vests when they need to change the special lamps. This is because these bulbs contain xenon gas at high pressure and quartz glass, and if they were to break, it would be very dangerous. In China, it is a popular trend for owners to dye their dogs in various colors to make them look like other animals. This practice is often seen in urban areas and on social media, where some try to imitate pandas, tigers, or other species in a visually striking way, although it has also sparked debate about animal welfare and the use of safe products to avoid harming their skin or fur. In order to be light enough to fly, birds only have one ovary. In most species, the functional ovary is the left one, while the right one atrophies during development. This adaptation reduces weight and also minimizes internal risks during flight and egg laying. Mark Zuckerberg is colorblind to red and green. That is why he made Facebook blue, because that is the color he can see best. This choice also ended up influencing the platform's visual identity, making blue one of the most recognizable colors on social media. In 1996, Marvel and DC Comics published a collaboration in which Wolverine and Batman were made into a single character called Darkclaw, or Logan Wayne. If a Google employee dies, their spouse receives half of their salary for the next 10 years, along with stock benefits, and their children receive $1,000 per month until they turn 19 years old. This program is part of their employee benefits and aims to provide financial stability to families after an unexpected loss, making it one of the most generous in the technology sector and uncommon among large companies. Walmart loses around $3 billion a year to small-scale theft. This phenomenon, known in the industry as shrinkage, includes theft committed by customers and employees. To reduce losses, the company invests in cameras, advanced surveillance systems, and real-time inventory tracking technology. Your cell phone can have up to 10 times more bacteria than a toilet seat. This is because we constantly touch it with our hands and rarely disinfect it, and its warm surface encourages the buildup of microorganisms, although most are not necessarily harmful to health. Cleaning it regularly can significantly reduce this bacterial load. The man with the deepest voice in the world, Tim Storms, can produce a note that is impossible for the human ear to hear, but it is registered on electronic measuring devices, and elephants can also hear it. Pixar attributes its success to its anti-Disney style. No songs, no happy ending, and no love stories. Instead, they do everything possible to make you cry. Mosquitoes do not just bite you. They also urinate on you after sucking your blood. In reality, as they feed, they quickly expel excess liquid to concentrate nutrients, which can happen almost at the same time they are feeding, although this process is microscopic and goes completely unnoticed by people. In addition, this rapid expulsion allows them to fly again without increasing their weight too much. At the University of Victoria in Canada, they have a course on the science of Batman, in which this superhero is used to explain the human condition and the limitations of the mind and body. An artist in Mexico created a series of underwater sculptures that function as both art and artificial reefs. These works not only attract tourists, but also promote marine life by serving as a base for corals and other species, contributing to the restoration of damaged ecosystems. Over time, many pieces become covered with marine life, integrating into the environment. Bart had much more dialogue in the episodes of the first season of The Simpsons than in all the other seasons that followed, due to Homer's popularity. If you search for the word askew on Google, the page will tilt slightly to the right. This effect is one of several hidden Easter eggs in the search engine, created by engineers as small interactive details that do not affect functionality, but add a curious and fun touch to the user experience. Iron Man was created by Stan Lee as a challenge he set for himself to create a hero that people would like, even though he clearly does not have the typical values that other heroes have. In 2009, Burger King launched a campaign where, if you deleted 10 friends on Facebook, you were entitled to a free Whopper through the application called Whopper Sacrifice. Your friend would receive a message telling them that their friendship was worth less than a hamburger. The campaign quickly went viral and sparked debate about the value of relationships on social media. It even led to intervention by the platform over privacy concerns. The first police force in Australia was made up of the best-behaved convicts. It was created in the late 18th century in the colony of New South Wales, where most of the population were British prisoners. Authorities trusted the inmates with the best conduct to maintain order and watch over other prisoners. President Barack Obama was known as Barry Obama in high school due to his ability on the basketball team. During his youth in Hawaii, his classmates nicknamed him that, and he himself used that name informally before adopting Barack more officially in his adult life, especially during his college years. 50,000 years ago, there were ducks the size of a modern horse, called dromornithids, that lived in Australia, but they went extinct. Recently, it was discovered that they were actually distant relatives of modern birds, such as ducks and geese. There is a lake in Western Australia called Lake Hillier that has naturally pink water. Its color remains even when the water is placed in a container, and it is believed to be due to microorganisms and high salt levels that produce special pigments, such as certain algae and bacteria that thrive in extreme conditions and consistently generate intense pink tones. According to its gross domestic product, Singapore is the third richest country in the world. This position is usually measured by gross domestic product per capita adjusted for purchasing power parity, where it stands out for its economy oriented toward finance, maritime trade, and technology, despite its small territory. All the characters in the movie Toy Story only blink one eye at a time. This detail was used in the original animation as a way to simplify the process and reduce rendering load, although over time it also became part of the character's distinctive style. In addition, that type of animation helped give them a more playful and less human feel, reinforcing the idea that they are toys. There is a region in Canada called Hudson Bay where there is less gravity than in the rest of the world. If you go to that place, you weigh less, although the difference is very small. Scientists do not know exactly why this happens, but it is believed to be due to convection of the Earth's crust in that area. For several years, the App Store allowed a maximum price of $999.99 per application, and some developers even released apps at that price, often as a marketing strategy or to offer very exclusive services. In most cases, they were not aiming for mass sales, but rather to generate attention or position themselves as premium products. Norway's coastline is so long that it would be the equivalent of going around planet Earth 2.5 times if all its fjords and islands are counted. This enormous extension is due to its geography deeply carved by ancient glaciers, which formed thousands of inlets and peninsulas. Jackie Chan is actually a pop star in Asia. He has not only released 20 albums since 1984, but he often sings the main themes of his own movies, combining his acting career with music. He has also recorded songs in several languages, including Mandarin, Cantonese, and Japanese, which expanded his popularity across different markets. On the island of Boracay in the Philippines, only white automobiles are allowed. If they are another color, they cannot circulate. But this rule applies to four-wheeled motor vehicles, so there are vehicles such as motorcycles that can be other colors. There is a cruise ship called The World, where residents live permanently while it travels around the globe. Buying an apartment on board will cost you $2 million, in addition to up to $270,000 per year in maintenance costs. The ship functions as a private community with full services, including restaurants, shops, and cultural activities. There are 93 million Wangs in China. It is the most common surname in that country. Wang means king in Mandarin and has a history that dates back to ancient dynasties. Due to China's enormous population, even a small percentage represents tens of millions of people. Voldemort in French literally translates as flight of death. The name combines words that evoke death and escape or evasion, which fits the character and his obsession with avoiding death at all costs. In addition, the author chose a name with an elegant and dark sound, influenced by the French language, to convey mystery, power, and an almost immortal feeling to those who hear it. In the movie Beauty and the Beast from 2017, there are two scenes that were deleted in which the character Le Fou enters a bathroom and encounters an animated toilet that used to be human. Then, at the end of the movie, when everyone returns to normal, the person who was that toilet briefly appears. He mentions that the first thing he is going to do is brush his teeth. Nemo makes an appearance in the movie Monsters, Inc. as a toy that Boo gives to Sully, 2 full years before Finding Nemo was released. In fact, Pixar movies are famous for being full of secrets like this, including cross-references, internal codes, and hidden Easter eggs that connect their stories. The air that potato chip bags are filled with, which makes us so angry, is actually nitrogen, and it helps keep the product fresh and also prevents the chips from being crushed during transport. A googol is actually a mathematical term for a very large number equal to 1 followed by 100 zeros. The name was proposed by the nephew of a mathematician in the 20th century and later inspired the name of the company Google. It was coined by mathematician Edward Kasner to help explain concepts of extremely large numbers in a simple way. 95% of the decisions you make were already made before you became aware of them by your subconscious. There are still 4 NFL teams that have never been to a Super Bowl: the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The United States Navy trained 36 dolphins so they could stop people using poisoned darts. But when Hurricane Katrina occurred in 2005, the dolphins were lost in the Gulf of Mexico and to this day have not been found. The current United States flag was designed by a 17-year-old student named Robert Heft as a high school class project, for which he received a grade of 4 out of 5. Later, his design was officially selected after the admission of new states, and his grade was corrected. According to studies, people who seem to be distracted all the time have better memory and a sharper brain. Some research suggests that so-called mind-wandering activates brain networks associated with creativity and memory consolidation, which can facilitate faster connections between ideas and previous experiences. Blue eyes originated between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago as a result of a genetic mutation called OCA2. Before this, everyone had brown eyes, and all individuals with blue eyes today share a common ancestor related to that mutation. This variation affects the production of melanin in the iris, reducing its amount and allowing light to scatter differently, creating the characteristic blue color. The artificial sweetener known as Splenda was discovered by accident in 1976, when a researcher misunderstood the instruction to test the compound and thought he was being told to taste it. Every person on Earth, including you and me, has lines on the body called Blaschko's lines, which can only be seen under certain conditions, such as under ultraviolet light. These lines follow patterns of cellular development and can become visible in certain diseases or skin conditions. One day, the well-known American host Oprah brought a wagon carrying 66 pounds of fat onto her show to illustrate how much weight she had lost in 1988. To this day, she regrets that unpleasant act. Happy pizza is a type of pizza sold in Cambodia that is topped with marijuana. This type of dish emerged as a tourist curiosity in some establishments, although its availability and legality can vary over time due to changes in regulations. In many cases, establishments warn customers about its effects before consuming it. The Nepal owl has feathers on the front part of its body that appear to have heart shapes. However, it is seen as an evil animal in countries such as Sri Lanka due to a legend and the strange sounds it makes at night. To drink, giraffes have to spread their legs, which are nearly 6 feet long, just to get close enough to the water. This position makes them vulnerable to predators, so they usually do it carefully and in groups to stay alert, and they can also go long periods without drinking by getting much of their water from the plants they eat. November 19th is officially Have a Bad Day Day. These types of celebrations are part of so-called unofficial days, created with a humorous tone to recognize everyday emotions and remind people that everyone can have difficult days without it being unusual. It is often shared on social media as a form of collective release. The country with the most 7-Eleven stores is Japan, with more than 20,000, more than double the number in the United States, the country of origin of this chain. In Mexico, there are around 1,800 locations. When Charles Darwin first discovered giant tortoises in the Galapagos Islands, he tried to ride them. In his journals, he described his curiosity about these animals and their behavior, reflecting the scientific and exploratory interest he had during his travels. In real life, Russi Taylor, the voice of Minnie Mouse, was married to Wayne Alwyn, the voice of Mickey Mouse. Both worked for years bringing these characters to life, and their relationship was seen as a curious coincidence that delighted fans. It was even said that the magic of their voices reflected their relationship outside the studio. Until before the 18th century, there were specialized soldiers called grenadiers, whose job consisted exclusively of throwing grenades. Later, the role lost popularity, and the grenadiers were reassigned as regular soldiers. Crocodiles cannot stick out their tongues and cannot chew. Instead of chewing, they tear their food and swallow it in large chunks, and their tongue is attached to the roof of their mouth by a membrane that prevents it from moving freely, which also helps keep water from entering their throat when they are submerged. The Amazon River releases so much fresh water into the Atlantic Ocean that it can be drunk 186 miles from the coast. This happens because it is the river with the highest flow rate on the planet, releasing around 7,062,933 cubic feet of water per second and forming a massive freshwater plume visible from space. The largest treehouse in the world is located in Tennessee and has 10 floors and 10,000 square feet. It took 11 years to build, but only cost $12,000 due to the use of mostly recycled materials. It was built by a local preacher as a personal project and became a very popular tourist attraction. For years, visitors from all over the world came to see it, until it was closed for safety reasons. A law has just been enacted in the Philippines requiring all students to plant at least 10 trees in order to graduate, something that definitely should be applied worldwide. In the United States, April 2nd is National Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwich Day. This celebration is part of the many unofficial food-related holidays that honor popular dishes within American culture. The person who invented the stop sign, the pedestrian crossing, the one-way street, and other traffic aids for cities, William Phelps Eno, ironically never learned how to drive. Strawberries are not considered a berry, but a banana is. In fact, strawberries have their own classification, which is accessory fruit. In the case of strawberries, the small, visible seeds on their surface are actually the true fruits, while the red part is tissue that supports them. This classification is based on botanical criteria and not on common language usage. Natalie Portman was studying psychology at Harvard while filming the Star Wars prequel trilogy movies. For example, she filmed her scenes in Attack of the Clones during her summer vacation after finishing her first year. In 2013, police in the Maldives arrested a coconut that was lying near an administrative center for that country's presidential elections. Locals believed it was cursed and had been placed there to alter the outcome of the event. Humans have the protein necessary for detecting magnetic fields, but our brains have no way to decode that information. That is why we do not have that ability that many animals possess. All Pixar staff had to take a graduate-level class in fish biology before making Finding Nemo. This helped the animators better understand movement, behavior, and the marine environment, achieving a level of realism and detail that was uncommon in animated films. They also visited aquariums to study fish directly. Google image search was created after Jennifer Lopez wore a dress at the Grammy Awards in 2000. It became the most popular search of all time on Google at that moment. But there was no image search, so they created one. In 1904, a Swedish sailor named Carl Pettersson was shipwrecked on an island in Papua New Guinea inhabited by cannibal tribes. He was captured and sent to the king, but the king's daughter, the princess, fell in love with him. Later, they married, and he became the king of the island. Not foolish at all. The optical illusion you are seeing is called the McCullough effect. It is so powerful that simply observing it for 10 minutes under certain tone configurations can cause you to hallucinate different colors that are not there for up to a month, according to scientific studies. When Candy Crush was at its peak, the distance traveled by all players' fingers combined in a normal day was measured. It was 71,458 miles, the equivalent of 2,738 marathons. There is a type of fish called Anabantidae, better known as the climbing gourami, that has the ability to leave the water, breathe oxygen, and even walk. This is possible thanks to a special organ called the labyrinth, which allows it to temporarily survive outside of water in search of new habitats. It can move short distances using undulating movement. There are more lion statues in the world than real lions. We want fewer statues and more lions, please. It is estimated that fewer than 25,000 wild lions remain in Africa, mainly due to habitat loss, conflicts with humans, and illegal hunting. Just a century ago, their population was much larger. If Lara Croft, the protagonist of the famous video game Tomb Raider, were a real person, she would now be 51 years old, since, according to her creators, she was born on February 14, 1968. Cellist Yo-Yo Ma once left his 280-year-old cello, valued at $2,500,000, in a New York taxi. Fortunately, he recovered it later. In the United Kingdom, people who turn 100 years old or celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary receive a personalized card from the Queen. This tradition continues today with the current monarch and is officially managed, requiring family members or representatives to request the letter in advance. For many families, receiving it is a very special, symbolic recognition. The country of Iceland is so safe that sometimes parents leave their babies in their strollers on the streets so they can sleep for a while the parents go shopping. This practice is also related to the local belief that cold air strengthens the immune system and helps babies sleep better. The movie The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it won all of them. This achievement made it one of the most awarded movies in history and tied the record for the most Oscars won by a single film. While strawberries are not berries, watermelons and avocados are. Additionally, cherimoyas are a multiple berry fruit, meaning they are formed from many berries that fuse together. For more than 2 weeks, Great Britain shut down its coal-powered plants, generating energy with other, more environmentally friendly alternatives. These coal shutdown periods will happen more frequently. The suits astronauts use for spacewalks require 5,000 hours to manufacture when combining the work of everyone involved, and they also cost between $12 and $15 million each. Shakespeare and Pocahontas lived during the same time period and could have met, except they lived a bit far apart. Donating blood can burn around 650 calories. If done regularly, this calorie loss may help prevent heart disease, although you could also exercise. Former United States President Barack Obama has won more Grammy Awards than Katy Perry. Somehow, Obama has 2, and Perry has 0. In the series The Big Bang Theory, they had a real physicist, Professor David Salzberg, as a consultant the entire time to ensure that all the equations written by Sheldon and his friends were correct. After the opening weekend of the movie Frozen, flights from the United States to Norway increased by 153%. 3 times more people traveled to the Nordic country thanks to the film. If police officers in Thailand misbehave, they may be publicly humiliated by being forced to wear bright pink Hello Kitty armbands. This disciplinary measure has been used in some departments as a symbolic form of punishment, aiming to correct behavior without resorting to more severe sanctions. The idea is to create a social impact that discourages future misconduct. Actor Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan in the Star Wars prequels, has a brother who is a pilot in the British Armed Forces. His name is Colin McGregor, and his call sign is Obi-2. If he had another brother in the forces, he would be called OB3. In the early 1960s, the original program, The Price is Right, gave away prizes such as an airplane, a submarine, a swimming pool, and a house in Florida. Only 18,000 years ago, on the island of Flores in Indonesia, there were pygmies who were like real-life hobbits, adult humans only 35 inches tall. The reason they were that size is because they were trapped on that island, and over time their height was reduced. Miniature elephants also once lived on that same island. Rice does not need to grow in water, but since it is not harmed by it, farmers use this flooding technique to better protect it from pests. There is a Russian novel published in 1999 called The Last Ring-Bearer, which tells the Lord of the Rings from Sauron's perspective. The work offers an alternative view where events are reinterpreted, questioning the traditional narrative of good versus evil. The famous Wrigley's chewing gum was removed from stores during World War II because all production batches were delivered to the United States Army for soldiers. The city of London, England, reached again the population number it had before World War II in January 2015. This is where the Caribbean meets the Atlantic in Eleuthera, Bahamas. In this area, known as Glass Window Bridge, you can clearly see the contrast between the dark blue of the Atlantic and the bright turquoise of the Caribbean. There are more tigers in the state of Texas, in the United States, than tigers living in the wild in the entire world. In Texas, it is very easy to own a tiger. You only need a few permits. It is even easier than owning a dog considered dangerous. In the city of Larkhall, in Scotland, they hate the color green so much that it is almost impossible to find it there. Even Subway restaurants are black. This is due to differences in beliefs and football rivalries. Bees can fly at an altitude of 29,528 feet above sea level. That is higher than the summit of Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. This is what rain looks like from the view of an airplane. From that height, individual drops are not visible, but rather darker or more diffuse areas in the clouds and landscape, offering a completely different perspective of the phenomenon. If you wanted to recreate the Lego movie using real pieces, you would need 15,080,330 blocks. If you built a tower with those pieces, it would measure 93 miles. The Pallas's cat is the oldest living species of modern cat, which first appeared 12 million years ago. This small feline inhabits cold regions of Central Asia and stands out for its dense fur and flat face, adaptations that allow it to survive in extreme climates and rocky terrain. It is also known for its solitary behavior and its ability to camouflage in its environment. It is estimated that the audience attending video game music concerts is twice as large as those attending traditional music concerts such as Beethoven's, which I would say is not so bad because video games have excellent music. Marvel Comics once created a superhero called Throg, which is a frog that has the power of Thor and is part of a group called the Pet Avengers. The character originated as an alternative and humorous version within the Marvel Universe, but it gained popularity among fans. The largest pyramid of coins in the world was built using 1 million coins at the Bank of Lithuania Museum in 2014. The small pocket inside the larger pocket of your jeans was originally designed for pocket watches. Over time, although watches stopped being used that way, the design remained as a classic element in the construction of pants. One of the most coveted jobs in Venice is being a gondolier. There are only 425 licenses available, and applicants must be native Venetians. Those selected must complete 400 hours of training before they can begin working. In some countries, such as Mexico, Germany, Austria, and Denmark, it is not illegal to escape from prison, as long as the fugitive does not break any laws in the process. This is based on the legal idea that the desire for freedom is a natural human instinct, although any damage, violence, or additional crime during the escape is punished. According to a study, the mode of transportation that makes people happiest when using it is the bicycle, outperforming other modes such as cars, boats, and airplanes. The United States is obligated to provide support in the event of war to 87 countries with which it has signed treaties. According to a study conducted by Macquarie University, playing video games before going to sleep gives a person the ability to control their dreams. It also suggests that gamers are more likely to have lucid dreams compared to those who do not play. The delivery company UPS uses route optimization software that saves them $100 million per year in fuel costs. It mainly does this by eliminating left turns. Citizens of Norway pay half their taxes in November so that everyone can have more money for Christmas. This is due to an adjustment in the annual withholding system, since during the rest of the year, people pay slightly more than necessary, allowing this temporary tax relief during the holiday season. The Speedo LZR swimsuit is designed to emulate shark skin, and it turned out to be so effective that it was banned in professional swimming because it helped swimmers break 24 world records at the 2008 Olympic Games. In a Lego store in the Czech Republic, they built a giant Star Wars ship made of 5.3 million pieces that measures 43 feet, weighs 25 short tons, and required 17,300 hours of work to complete. At the restaurant called Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas, where everything is extremely greasy and portions are massive, the only vegan option on the menu is cigarettes. Between 1997 and 1998, there was a popular Russian game show called Intercept, where contestants stole a car, and if they were not caught by the police within 35 minutes, they won the car. Otherwise, they were arrested. Omochiro, or fun notepads, reveal a different traditional Japanese monument as you remove the pages. They are very popular in that country. In the classic Nintendo video game Punch-Out!, the character you control, named Little Mac, had to be small on purpose so he would not take up too much space on the screen, and the opponents could be observed. His name is a play on words that references the famous Big Mac hamburger. In 1945, a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived the atomic explosion in Hiroshima, only to take the morning train and arrive at his job on time in Nagasaki, where he survived another atomic explosion. He is officially recognized as a survivor of both events, something extremely rare in history. Michel Ferrero, the inventor of Kinder Eggs, Nutella, and Ferrero Rocher, protected the secret recipes of these products so carefully that he claimed even the recipe for Coca-Cola was known by more people than the one for his hazelnut and chocolate sweets. Jim Cummings, the voice of Winnie the Pooh, calls children in hospitals and speaks to them using the character's voice to make them feel better. On many occasions, he does this voluntarily, even without prior notice, and adapts the character's tone to deliver personalized messages of encouragement that create very meaningful moments for patients and their families. He has also mentioned that he considers these calls one of the most important parts of his work. Since 1945, all British tanks have been equipped with facilities to make tea. This tradition reflects the cultural importance of tea in the United Kingdom and the need to maintain crew morale in combat situations. The singer Taylor Swift donated all her earnings from her Wildest Dreams video, in which she appears alongside different wild animals, to the African Wildlife Conservation Foundation. The word verb is actually a noun. It is used to name a grammatical category, which shows how language can refer to itself using its own structures, something known as meta-language, where words describe other words within the same linguistic system. Soldiers have to break step. That is, stop marching in rhythm when crossing a bridge, because in 1831, the rhythmic march of British soldiers broke a bridge and they fell. Crocodiles do not have sweat glands. For that reason, they must cool themselves by leaving their jaws open for a while. Then it looks like they are simply there with their mouths open going, ah. In the summer of 1932, while sitting in a restaurant, Adolf Hitler designed the prototype of what would become the first Volkswagen Beetle. The idea was part of a project to create an affordable car for the general public, known as the People's Car. George Reeves, the actor who played Superman in the 1950s, had to be careful because sometimes his fans tried to test his powers. One day, a fan pointed a gun at him. Reeves convinced him not to shoot by saying that the ricochet of the bullet could harm someone nearby. That is really staying in character. In 1928, Henry Ford ordered the construction of a complete city in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil and called it Fordlandia. It was completely focused on producing rubber due to the high demand for making tires for his cars. It was later abandoned for a long time, but currently, around 3,000 people live in that place. In March 2013, a man got a tattoo of the word Netflix on his side, and after tweeting a photo to the company, he was given a year of free service. The story went viral and was used as an example of the impact of social media on marketing campaigns. Stalin's guards were so afraid of him that they did not call a doctor until 12 hours after he suffered a stroke. They were afraid he would recover and execute anyone who had acted outside his orders. 684 different species of plants have been identified in the Roman Colosseum. This is because seeds were planted through the waste of exotic animals brought from distant places of the Roman Empire and other parts of the world. The letter U was first used as a substitute for the word you by William Shakespeare in his comedy Love's Labour's Lost, around 1595. This type of abbreviation reflects how language has always evolved, even centuries before modern text messaging. In 2009, a woman named Patricia DeMauro rolled a pair of dice 154 times in a game of craps at a casino without losing her streak. She broke world records. The probability of this happening is 1 in 5 billion. The Mona Lisa painting has more than 30 layers of paint that were applied by Leonardo da Vinci. Some are thinner than the thickness of a human hair, so we will probably never know what is hidden in those lower layers. San Marino is the oldest republic still in existence in the world. It gained its independence from the Roman Empire in the year 301. At its peak popularity, the Candy Crush application generated $956,000 every day and had more than 100 million unique users per month. The ruler of Egypt, Cleopatra, lived closer in time to the creation of Facebook than to the construction of the Great Pyramid, which is about 4,500 years old. Cleopatra was born approximately 2,090 years ago. In 2010, a Nigerian couple living in the United Kingdom gave birth to a blonde, blue-eyed white baby who was called the Miracle Baby. Experts explained that it could be due to a rare genetic combination or mutation, generating widespread media attention at the time. When the astronomer Fritz Zwicky, the father of dark matter, was forbidden from using a telescope at Palomar, he responded by calling the other astronomers spherical bastards, because, as he explained, they were bastards no matter which direction you looked at them from. Lobsters and jellyfish are biologically immortal and can live forever. In reality, some species, such as the jellyfish Turritopsis dohrnii, can reverse their life cycle under certain conditions, and lobsters show very slow aging. But both can die from disease, predators, or environmental changes. The dot over a lowercase I or j is called a tittle. This term comes from the Latin word titulus and is used in typography to describe that small dot that helps differentiate these letters and improve readability in writing. In 2013, in China, stockings for women covered with fake hair became fashionable. They wore them to avoid unwanted male attention. The lion roar sound effects in the movie The Lion King are not actually lions. It is only the voice actor Frank Welker growling and shouting with a metal trash can over his head. In Nairobi, Kenya, country music is very popular because, according to them, Kenyans can identify with the lyrics. More than 15% of the music sold there is from that genre. According to a study, the average high school student currently has the same level of stress as a person hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital in the 50s. There is a Canadian toy company called Child's Own Studio that turns children's drawings into stuffed animals. Each piece is unique and handmade, staying as faithful as possible to the original drawing, which makes it a very special keepsake. Scientists found traces of cannabis in pipes discovered in William Shakespeare's garden. Humans have between 12,000 and 60,000 individual thoughts that pass through their minds each day, and 80% of these are negative. Only 2 species have domesticated other species: ants and humans. Ants have domesticated certain aphids. In the city of Los Angeles, 96 million plastic balls are used to cover the drinking water reservoir to prevent evaporation. This saves enough water for the consumption of more than 8,000 people each year. At the Curve Gallery in the Barbican Centre in London, there is something called the Rain Room, where, through the use of sensors, rain falls everywhere in the room except where you are walking. The installation uses cameras and tracking technology to detect movement in real time, creating the illusion of controlling the rain. Mosquitoes prefer certain blood types. People with type O blood are the most prone to bites. Studies indicate that these insects can detect chemical differences in the skin and sweat, and they tend to land more frequently on those with type O than on those with type A or B. The pygmy marmoset is the smallest monkey in the world, with an average length of only 5.30 inches and an average weight of only 3.5 ounces. It lives in the Amazon basin and feeds mainly on tree sap, which it obtains by making small holes in the bark with its teeth. Approximately 1 out of every 10 people in China has the last name Wang, which means king. It is the most common last name in the country. Second place is Li, followed by Zhang. The most successful interrogator of World War II was named Hans Scharf. Instead of using torture on prisoners, he was kind to them to gain their trust by taking them to a movie theater in the camp, or sharing tea or coffee with them. The highest ambient temperature ever recorded was in El Azizia in Libya on September 13, 1922. On that occasion, the thermometer recorded 136.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The oldest musical instruments are approximately 43,000 years old. They were flutes made from bird and mammoth bones. There is an alarm clock called Clocky that has wheels and runs away and hides if you do not get out of bed on time. It was designed to force people to physically get up to turn it off, helping to fight the habit of repeatedly snoozing the alarm. And it can jump off the nightstand and roll around the room until it finds a hiding spot. In 2008, Doritos projected a 30-second advertisement to a planetary system 42 light-years away from here, in collaboration with the Space Center in Norway. What kind of image are we giving to our space neighbors? There is an insect called the Lord Howe Island stick insect, or tree lobster, that is among the largest in the world. It measures almost the same as a human hand, and can only be found on a small island near Australia. The then President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, was shot before giving a speech. When he realized it had not pierced his lung because he was not coughing up blood, he proceeded to deliver the speech, which lasted 90 minutes. The smallest poisonous frog in the world measures only 0.39 inches, and its defense mechanism consists of expelling liquid poison through the pores of its skin. Bob Marley's last words to his son Ziggy were, "Money cannot buy life." This phrase has become emblematic because it summarizes his philosophy about the spiritual and the material, reflecting how, even at the end of his life, he prioritized meaning and essence over wealth. Anne Hathaway wanted to be a nun when she was younger. She grew up in a Catholic family and, during her teenage years, seriously considered religious life. However, she later distanced herself from the church and decided to focus on acting, a career that led her to win an Oscar. The Snuggery is a service where you can hire someone and pay them $60 per hour to come cuddle with you. These types of non-sexual contact services have emerged in various cities as a way to combat loneliness, and they usually include strict rules to ensure the comfort and safety of both people. For the movie Crimson Peak from 2015, they had to build a complete mansion. This was after they were unable to find an ideal filming location, and many of the items used to complete the furniture and decoration belonged to the director, Guillermo del Toro. This scan of the official Nintendo character guide published in 1993 reveals that Yoshi's real name is T. Yoshi Sa Munchakoopas. This detail appears in old and obscure materials from the franchise, although it is rarely mentioned in modern games, making it a little-known fact among fans. In the 16th century, English sailors received part of their pay in rum. To make sure it was not diluted, they added gunpowder to see if it would ignite, which only happened if the rum had an alcohol content of 57%. The animal in the Firefox logo is not a fox. It is actually an animal known as a red panda, a species that is closer to the raccoon family. The name Firefox is a common nickname in English for this animal, which inspired both the name and the image of the browser. George Lucas scheduled a trip to Hawaii on the same weekend as the release of the first Star Wars movie, which he directed and wrote. All of this was to be very far away and avoid reading bad reviews. However, when he began to see that it was a success, he immediately canceled that trip. The largest cave in the world is Son Doong Cave in Vietnam. It is just under 5.6 miles long, and its interior is so large that it has its own clouds and jungles. In fact, its ceiling is so high that you could fit an entire 40-story skyscraper inside, and its isolated ecosystem hosts unique species that do not exist anywhere else on the planet. In 2004, a worker at the tax office in Finland died in his cubicle, and although there were more than 100 people working there, no one realized he was dead until 2 days later. In the movie Terminator 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid $15 million and only spoke 700 words of dialogue. If you break that cost down per word, it means his famous line, "Hasta la vista, baby," cost $85,714. This calculation became popular as an example of the value of movie stars in Hollywood and the cultural impact of iconic lines in cinema. There is an international zip line that if you jump on it, you land in another country. It is between Spain and Portugal. Phantom vibration syndrome exists, and it is when you think your phone is vibrating. It happens to a considerable percentage of people, including me. In the original Dragon Ball Z manga, the author Akira Toriyama invented this Super Saiyan transformation only to make it easier to ink the drawings, since having white hair meant less time painting the characters who originally had black hair. Later in the animated series, they made it yellow or golden. In the 1980s, the notorious drug lord Pablo Escobar earned so much money with his cartel that he spent $2,500, or $7,200 in today's money, every month just on rubber bands to hold all the cash. In Serbia, you are allowed to vote 2 years earlier, at 16 years old, if you have a job. The law includes this exception for legally emancipated young people who work and contribute to the system, although the general voting age in national elections remains 18. The novel Twilight was rejected 14 times before finally being published. After its release, it became a global phenomenon with millions of copies sold and film adaptations that further expanded its popularity. The 10 countries that consume the most cheese in the world are in Europe, and France is in first place. On average, the French consume 55.12 pounds of cheese each year. There are shoes inspired by the Wizard of Oz that guide you home when you click your heels, using a global positioning system. These experimental prototypes incorporate vibrations or directional signals that indicate the correct path, combining wearable technology with creative design inspired by Dorothy's iconic shoes. The shortest short film ever nominated for an Oscar lasts less than 2 minutes. It is a stop-motion animation called Fresh Guacamole. Although it may sound counterintuitive, hot water can freeze faster than cold water. This is known as the Mpemba effect and is still studied today as it depends on multiple factors such as evaporation, ambient temperature, and container conditions. It does not always happen, but under certain circumstances, it can be clearly observed in controlled experiments. The website urbandictionary.com has been used in court cases to define words that are not in official dictionaries. License plates for automobiles in the Northwest Territories region of Canada are shaped like polar bears. In that area, only the rear plate is required for vehicles. The largest man-made hole in the world is the Bingham Canyon copper mine in Utah, with approximately 0.62 miles of depth, 2.48 miles of width, and covering about 1,900 acres. It is an open-pit mine that has been in operation since the late 19th century and has produced millions of tons of copper, being visible even from space. The Hawaiian singer Israel Kamakawi once called a recording studio at 3 in the morning to ask if he could record. He arrived 15 minutes later and recorded the song Over the Rainbow in a single take. The airport considered the most difficult to land at for a pilot is Paro Airport, located in Bhutan in the Himalayan mountains. Currently, fewer than 20 pilots in the world are certified to be able to land at that airport. Justin Timberlake's mother was the legal guardian of Ryan Gosling when he was a child. This happened during the time when both were part of the show The Mickey Mouse Club, when Gosling temporarily moved in to continue his television career, since his family remained in Canada while he worked in the United States. Taiwan is the first country in the world to offer free Wi-Fi connection for all citizens, for foreigners, and for tourists as well. Taiwan, I am on my way. In 2011, Barack Obama became the first president to brew beer at the White House. In fact, the beer itself is called White House Honey Ale and was made using honey from beehives installed on the grounds of the presidential residence. Until recently, it was believed that giraffes did not make any kind of sound. But after analyzing more than 1,000 hours of audio over 8 years, it was discovered that they do make a sound, but it is at a very low frequency due to their long necks. There is an Australian sculptor named Sam Jinks who creates hyper-realistic sculptures made entirely of wax, fiberglass, silicone, and real human hair. His works are so detailed that they are often unsettling, as they capture skin textures, wrinkles, and expressions with almost photographic precision, and they can take months to complete due to the meticulous manual work each piece requires. Sunflowers are capable of cleaning radioactive waste. They can extract contamination through their roots and store it in their leaves. That is why they are the international symbol against nuclear disarmament. There is a lake in the United States called Chargagagman-Chagagag Chabunagungamog, which is often cited as the longest place name in the United States. Try saying that 3 times fast. The name comes from an indigenous language and, according to some popular interpretations, describes a humorous idea related to fishing in the area. To film the fight scene in the movie Spider-Man: No Way Home, which takes place on the renovated Statue of Liberty, the production had to build a complete set the size of a stadium that was covered with blue screens to achieve the digital effects. Macklemore once worked at a juvenile detention center to help detainees express themselves by writing and creating rap lyrics. This experience influenced his later music, especially on topics related to personal growth and social struggles. A man who worked at a major company whose name was not disclosed secretly outsourced his job to a Chinese man while he only played on his computer. He earned thousands of dollars that way until he was discovered and fired. The Dutch artist Bernd Smilde discovered how to create small clouds inside rooms using a balance of humidity, lighting, temperature, and air current. He integrates the clouds into his artistic work. The Lego Bridge is a concrete bridge in Germany that has become famous for being painted to look like a giant bridge made of Lego bricks. This design is an optical illusion created by urban artists that transforms a common structure into a very popular visual attraction. The Beastie Boys came up with the name mullet for this particular hairstyle in 1994 in their song Mullet Head. The term became popular and entered everyday language. No one had used the term before them. According to studies that have been conducted, people with highly creative minds tend to have trouble falling asleep early and prefer to stay awake late into the night. Every night, the maintenance staff at Walt Disney World spreads very hot water so that the chewing gum on the walkways and in the ride lines melts. They also use pressurized steam machines to remove residue from the pavement and maintain the impeccable cleanliness that characterizes the park. Irukandji jellyfish found in Australia measure about 0.39 inches. They are very small, but despite that, they are among the most venomous jellyfish in the world, 100 times more than a cobra. Johnny Depp has a passion for playing the guitar. In fact, he has played with artists such as Marilyn Manson, Oasis, Aerosmith, and Eddie Vedder. He has also been part of the band Hollywood Vampires, where he has shared the stage with well-known musicians in live performances. 1/3 of all humans live in areas with so much light pollution that it is impossible to see the Milky Way at night. Studies on artificial sky brightness estimate that this figure is even higher in urbanized regions of Europe and North America, where the glow of cities and highways almost completely erases the starry sky. Statistically, you are more likely to die on your way to buy a lottery ticket than to win the lottery itself. This is because the odds of winning major prizes are usually extremely low, often 1 in several million, making other everyday risks comparatively more likely. A man managed to capture a photo with 3 albino deer in a forest. The probability of this happening is 1 in 79 billion, due to how difficult it is to see one of these deer. There is a religion called Christian atheism. Its practitioners essentially believe in the same things as traditional Christians, except that the Bible is completely metaphorical and that God is an allegory of human morality rather than a real being. This approach seeks to maintain ethical teachings without adopting supernatural beliefs, and it usually focuses on values such as compassion, social justice, and personal responsibility within a community. It is possible to create a plant that grows potatoes underground and tomatoes above ground through grafting. This is possible because they can grow under very similar conditions. There are very small antelopes in Africa of the genus Medokwa that are known as dik-dik. They were named that because it is the sound they make when they are frightened. Dik-dik. A man named Daniel Balsam became so angry about receiving spam in his email inbox that he left his job to study law, and now dedicates himself to filing lawsuits against those who send so-called junk mail. The term checkmate comes from the Arabic shamat, meaning the king is dead. More specifically, it derives from the expression shah mat, which is interpreted as the king is helpless or defeated, reflecting the end of the game in chess. This term reached Europe through Persian and was adapted into different languages, preserving its original meaning linked to the final defeat of the monarch. The first firecrackers were made in China when people realized that if bamboo was burned, it would explode. This is because bamboo grows so fast that air bubbles form inside it that explode when heated. Dolphins do not drink seawater because it is harmful to them. Instead, all the liquid they need comes directly from their food. Coca-Cola was invented by an American pharmacist named John Pemberton, who advertised it as a nerve tonic that could cure headaches and fatigue. In its early days, it contained extracts from coca leaves and cola nut, and it was sold in pharmacies before becoming a globally popular beverage. The journalist Sarah Bongiorni and her family tried to live without products made in China for 1 year, which turned out to be almost impossible. She documented it in her book, A Year Without Mating China. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, released in 1997, is the only book that had sold 100 million copies after The Lord of the Rings, which was released in 1954. There is a bathroom on a mountain in Siberia that is located 8,500 feet above sea level, which is used by workers at a nearby weather station, and it is considered the loneliest bathroom in the world. One of the oldest living creatures on Earth was a giant tortoise named Adwaita from India, which is believed to have been 255 years old before finally dying in 2006. It lived in a zoo in Calcutta, and although its exact age is debated, it was considered a symbol of exceptional longevity, as its story is based on historical records and accounts that even link it to the British colonial era. The Palmyra giant salamander can extend its tongue up to 50 times faster than you can blink. If you are taller than 6 feet 2 inches, you cannot be an astronaut. This limit has existed in certain space programs due to space constraints in spacecraft, although requirements may vary depending on the agency and available technology. For example, in some modern missions, height ranges are more flexible, but still adapted to the design of cabins and spacesuits. In some countries, a technique is used on meat in which carbon monoxide is added to make it appear fresher. This is prohibited in Canada, Japan, Singapore, and throughout Europe. The word Sahara is an Arabic word that literally means Great Desert. So people who say Sahara Desert are actually saying the desert of the Great Desert. This type of linguistic repetition is common in many geographic names adopted by other languages, a phenomenon known as toponymic redundancy, also present in cases like Mississippi River or Lake Chad. One day, Mozart proposed marriage to Marie Antoinette of Austria. The offer was rejected. In reality, they were never a couple. Mozart promised to marry her when they were children. The author J.K. Rowling, from the Harry Potter universe, was a billionaire until she donated so much of her wealth to charity that she lost her billionaire status. Her contributions include donations to charitable organizations, medical causes, and social programs, which has been widely recognized. The story of Romeo and Juliet was actually written as a short novel by Matteo Bandello. Later, William Shakespeare, based on that story, wrote the play that remains popular to this day. The country of Niue, an island northeast of New Zealand, placed several Pokémon on its $1 coins in 2001, including Pikachu, Squirtle, Meowth, Bulbasaur, and Charmander. These coins were legal tender, but were mainly intended for collectors and fans of the franchise. The more a person believes in the way romance is portrayed in movies and television, the less likely they are to take their own relationship seriously, according to studies. There is a hand sanitizer called Maybe You Touched Your Genitals. This product emerged as a humorous marketing strategy to attract attention, using irreverent tone to stand out in a saturated market. People who smoke are 4 times more likely to develop gray hair during their lifetime than people who do not smoke. The third oldest tree of all was cut down by the United States Forest Service in 1964 for research purposes. At that time, it was believed to be 3,000 years old. It was later confirmed to be at least 4,682. Sunflowers were chosen as the international symbol for nuclear disarmament. This is because these flowers are good at decontaminating nuclear waste, since their stems and leaves absorb and store contaminants. The first theater exclusively for motion pictures opened in 1905 in Pittsburgh, United States. The founders called it Nickelodeon because the admission price was a 5-cent coin, popularly called a nickel, and Odeon, the ancient Greek word for theater. Ants go to war just like humans do. In fact, they are even capable of creating strategies, doing things like sending the weakest ants to fight first. Some species organize coordinated attacks, defend territories, and can maintain prolonged conflicts with rival colonies, using chemical signals to communicate, recruit reinforcements, and coordinate movements in a surprisingly efficient way. A little more than 50% of the nutrient-rich dust that covers the Amazon rainforest comes from a single valley called the Bodeli Depression in the country of Chad, in the Sahara Desert in Africa. Cherophobia is the fear of being happy or joyful, with the expectation that something bad will happen. It is not considered a widely recognized formal disorder, but it is often associated with anticipatory anxiety or cultural beliefs where happiness is perceived as temporary or risky, which can lead to avoiding positive experiences or moments of enjoyment out of fear of negative consequences afterward. Frida Kahlo arrived at her first solo exhibition in Mexico in an ambulance, disobeying her doctor's orders. The exhibition was held in 1953 at the Galería Arte Contemporáneo in Mexico City. Despite her delicate health condition, she was set up in a bed inside the gallery to receive guests. It is possible to see a rainbow as a full circle from an airplane. This happens because at high altitude, there are no obstacles blocking the lower part of the phenomenon, allowing its complete shape to be observed when light and humidity conditions are right. On the ground, we usually only see an arc due to the horizon, but in the air, the circle can surround the shadow of the airplane itself. In 2004, farmers in a region of India began using Coca-Cola and Pepsi as pesticides to protect their crops. This became popular for some time because they worked well for their purpose and were a cheaper method. During the O.J. Simpson car chase, Domino's Pizza sold the same number of pizzas as on a Super Bowl Sunday. Donkeys, or asses, can observe their four legs at the same time. This is because of the position of their eyes on their head. Despite what is believed and their name, they are very intelligent and friendly animals. A study revealed that only 2.6% of the ants in a colony are always active. 25% appear to never be working, and 71% are inactive half the time. The orca, better known as the killer whale, actually belongs to the dolphin family. It is the largest member of this group and is characterized by its high intelligence, complex social structures, and ability to communicate through sounds and vocalizations, as well as displaying cooperative hunting techniques and distinct cultures among groups that are passed down from generation to generation. Despite popular belief, nuclear power plants are one of the cleanest ways to generate energy. They produce up to 100 times less radiation than coal plants and do not emit pollutants into the environment. Fashion companies Chanel and Louis Vuitton burn their leftover products at the end of each season to prevent them from being sold at a discount. This practice has been reported in the luxury industry as a way to maintain brand exclusivity, although it has also generated criticism for its environmental impact and waste. In recent years, several brands have begun to change these policies toward more sustainable models. One day, a Brazilian police officer was shot and would have been injured if it had not been for the Lumia 520 cell phone in his pocket, which absorbed the full force of the shot and stopped the bullet. We miss you, Nokia. Astronauts on the space station throw away their clothes when they get dirty instead of washing them, due to the cost of space transportation, which costs about $9,072 to carry 1 pound of cargo to the station. It is cheaper to send them new clothes than what it would cost to wash them. The Temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was destroyed by a man who wanted to make himself famous for his crime against humanity. After his execution, the Greeks established that anyone who pronounced his name would be sentenced to death from that moment on. Research is being conducted on termites and how we could use them to produce energy. They can produce 0.53 gallons of hydrogen by consuming the equivalent of a single sheet of paper. This makes them one of the most efficient bioreactors on the planet. Due to noise ordinance laws in Europe, club owners have created silent discos where attendees listen to music through headphones. Each person can choose between different music channels, creating a personalized experience without generating external noise pollution. In Switzerland, there are enough underground shelters for the entire population of the country, and more. Since the Cold War, the law requires that every new building include access to a bunker. Currently, there are protected spaces that exceed the total number of inhabitants, equipped with airtight doors and independent ventilation systems. If you left Tokyo by plane at 7 in the morning, you would arrive in Honolulu at approximately 8 at night on the previous day due to the 19-hour time difference between time zones. This happens when crossing the international date line, which creates the sensation of going back in time, even though it is simply a calendar adjustment. People in Sweden can request to know the salary of any other citizen in the country. A government office is in charge of this information. They also send you a notification about who was the person who wanted to know your salary. In the late 1990s, the founders of Google offered to sell their project to Yahoo for around $1 million, but the offer was rejected. At that time, the search engine was still in its early stages, and Yahoo did not perceive its potential, a decision that is now considered one of the greatest missed opportunities in technology history. The animated music video of Bad Bunny's song Te Deseo Lo Mejor was the first time a completely Spanish production of The Simpsons was made in which the mouth movements match what is being said. The Latin American voice actors participated, Humberto Vélez and Claudia Mota. the original voices of Homer and Marge, who returned for season 32 of the series. If you inhale a pea, it is possible for it to sprout and grow in your lungs. Although it is extremely rare, there are documented medical cases where a seed temporarily germinated in the respiratory tract due to moisture and internal body conditions, although the immune system and medical intervention usually prevent the growth from continuing for long. During the broadcast in Great Britain of the Apollo 11 moon landing, the background music heard in the BBC studios the entire time was songs by Pink Floyd. The Kevlar bulletproof vest was invented by a pizza delivery man named Richard Davis after being shot twice on the job. In reality, Kevlar was developed by chemist Stephanie Kwolek at the company DuPont, while Davis helped popularize the vests by demonstrating them publicly, even testing them on himself to show their effectiveness. The billionaire John Paul Getty had a coin-operated telephone in his mansion for his guests to use if they wanted to make calls, so he would not have to pay for them. Lungfish, or dipnoi fish, are the only fish that currently exist that, in addition to gills, have lungs to breathe. This makes them the fish most similar and most closely related to humans. There is a small, heart-shaped island in Fiji called Tavarua. It is a very popular destination among surfers because of its world-class waves, and it is also frequently chosen for romantic trips due to its distinctive shape, as it features several internationally recognized surf breaks and limited access that helps preserve its natural environment. The London Underground was originally going to extend all the way to Paris. In the late 19th century, there were proposals to build a tunnel under the English Channel that would directly connect both capitals, but the plans were cancelled due to military and security concerns. Decades later, that idea materialized with the Channel Tunnel Railway. In bees, males die after reproducing, since during the process, they lose part of their reproductive organ, which prevents them from surviving much longer. This phenomenon occurs specifically in honeybees, where the drone dies after mating due to the physical damage it suffers. When the French engineer Louis Réard created the bikini in 1946, no model agreed to wear it to present it to the world, since they considered it too revealing. He had to hire a woman who danced at a nightclub to model it. There are several gold vending machines in various countries. The first one was made in Abu Dhabi. They are armored like an armored vehicle and are tested with explosives to prevent theft. There is a book called Everything Men Know About Women that has 100 pages, all of which are blank. There is a soda in Ghana called Pea Cola, that is, Pea Cola. Good name. Glitter was created in 1934, when a man was trying to find the best way to get rid of excess plastic he had. He tried crushing it and then pulverizing it into very small pieces, but when he did that, he realized they had reflections that made it look like it was shining. Sternutophobia is the fear of sneezing. Although it is uncommon, it can be related to anxiety or previous negative experiences, since sneezing involves a momentary loss of bodily control that some people perceive as uncomfortable or alarming. In a genetic study conducted on people from Iceland, it was discovered that many of them had a mutation predominant in Native Americans. It is said that this is because many Vikings had children with Native American women during the Norse exploration of America in the 11th century. It would take more than 51 million balloons to lift an average 1,990 square foot house off the ground, like in the movie Up. This calculation depends on the size of the balloons and the weight of the structure, and in practice, it would be extremely difficult to achieve due to stability and material strength. When the television show That 70s Show aired, the musician Alex Chilton, who composed the official theme of the show, would receive $70 in royalties every time an episode aired. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was Tim Burton's second choice to play Willy Wonka in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but as we all know, the role was played by Johnny Depp. The pickle brand Vlasic created a mascot in 1974 to promote its products, which is a stork. They created it specifically to direct their advertising toward pregnant women who were craving pickles. Leonardo da Vinci loved animals so much that he often bought caged birds that were sold in Italy at the time just to release them, a gesture that reflected his deep sensitivity toward life and his interest in understanding nature, which also influenced his studies on anatomy and the movement of birds. While 27 people die each year in elevator accidents, 1,600 die in accidents from choosing to use the stairs. Most of these deaths are due to falls, especially among older people. Although elevators are often perceived as more dangerous, statistically, stairs represent a greater risk in buildings and public spaces. Modern gold medals contain only 1.3% gold. The last time a solid gold medal was awarded was at the Stockholm Olympic Games in 1912. Today, they are mainly made of silver coated with gold, which allows the tradition to continue without the enormous cost of pure metal. Even so, they must contain a minimum amount of gold according to Olympic standards, maintaining their symbolic value more than their material value. The stickers that some fruits have to indicate their brand are made with edible paper and ink, and the glue used to attach them is also food grade. This is in case someone eats one by accident. Humans and bananas share approximately 50% of the same DNA. In reality, this comparison refers to similarities in certain basic genes that all living beings share, since many fundamental cellular functions are common among very different species. This does not mean we are alike, but rather that life shares a common biological origin. In 2010, a World Fireworks Championship was held, in which international teams competed to create the best 25-minute routine with the music of their choice. And the winner was France. Venezuela still has one of the cheapest fuels in the world, with subsidized prices that can be as low as just a few cents per liter. This low cost is due to long-standing state policies, although it has also created economic problems and distortions in the domestic market. In the 60s, the African country of Zambia had a space program. It consisted of a physics teacher, a teenager, and a few volunteers who set going to Mars as their goal. However, everything had to be canceled due to lack of funding. In Trout Creek, Montana, there is a place called the Shire of Montana, which is a replica of a hobbit village where anyone can stay for $295 per night. The houses are partially underground, with round doors and handcrafted details that faithfully recreate the style described in fantasy novels. The word vodka in Russian translates as little water in English. It comes from the word voda, which means water, and the diminutive suffix ka, which gives it that meaning of small water, reflecting both its transparent appearance and its traditional role in Slavic culture, where it has been a common drink for centuries. If you use headphones for 1 hour, the amount of bacteria in your ears can increase up to 700 times. This is due to the lack of ventilation, which promotes moisture and increased temperature, which are ideal conditions for microorganisms. There is a radio frequency coming from Russia that has been broadcasting the same sound since 1982. No one knows for certain where it originates or what it means. Sometimes voices can be heard giving orders, numbers, and names. There is no natural food that is blue. Blueberries and other foods that appear blue are actually just different shades of purple. In Finland, 9 out of 10 plastic beverage bottles and other plastic bottles are returned to be reused or recycled, and all glass bottles are also recycled. It is the leading country in these types of practices. At the Cosmo World Amusement Park in Yokohama, Japan, there is a roller coaster called Vanish that submerges its passengers into a massive underwater tunnel. The experience simulates disappearing into the water, and the tunnel was sealed with special engineering to withstand pressure and ensure complete safety. Anteaters can eat more than 35,000 ants each day. They use their long, sticky tongue, which can measure more than 1.6 feet, to capture them quickly. They have no teeth, so they swallow their prey whole and grind it in their stomach with the help of sand and small stones. The reason people traditionally wear wedding rings on the left ring finger is because, before medical science discovered how the circulatory system works, people believed there was a vein that ran directly from the fourth finger of the left hand to the heart. This supposed vein was called the vena amoris, and although it does not actually exist, the tradition remained because of its romantic meaning. A NASA scientist conducted an experiment to determine which animal is more likely to be run over by motorists. He placed plastic animals on the side of a road and realized that 6% of drivers deliberately swerved to crush them. Tarantulas were the most run over. Scientists in Japan managed to create mutant cherry blossom trees by exposing them to a high-power ion beam. These trees can now bloom 4 times a year and produce many more flowers. The movie Scream from 1996 was one of the main motivators behind the increase in popularity of caller identification machines for traditional telephones. In this movie, the villain would call his victims on the phone before chasing them. The millions of Rick rolls have generated almost no royalties for Rick Astley, but the renewed fame he has gained has helped revive his music career.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.